3 moons hung low over the Galactic Integration Academy when the announcement came through every student's personal device. Mandatory group cooking exercise. Tomorrow. No excuses. Danny Reeves read the message twice and laughed. He was 22 years old, born and raised on a cattle ranch in Montana. And if there was one thing humans knew how to do, it was feed people. This would be easy, but he was wrong. The next morning, Danny walked into the outdoor cooking arena and found his assigned group waiting near Station 4. His heart sank a little when he saw them, not because they looked unfriendly, but because he recognized immediately that none of them ate food the way he did. Prilla stood tallest among them. She was Theshan, an insectoid being with 4 arms and large compound eyes that reflected the morning light. Her species consumed only liquid nutrients. Solid food would kill her. Next to Prilla sat Rook, a Delvin. His body was made of living stone, gray and rough like granite. Delvins absorbed minerals directly through their skin. They found organic food disgusting. The smell alone made them sick. Scylla was small, barely reaching Danny's chest. She was Fenari, a fox-like creature covered in silver fur. Her ears lay flat against her head, and her eyes darted nervously toward the heating equipment scattered around the arena. Danny had read about Fenari. Their homeworld had suffered centuries of devastating wildfires. They feared heat and flame more than anything else in the galaxy. And then there was Gorith. The massive Brune stood with his arms crossed, watching Danny approach. Brune were predators from a high-gravity world. They ate only raw meat, and they considered cooking a sign of weakness. Their culture viewed fire-prepared food as shameful. Danny stopped in front of his group and smiled. "Hey, I am Danny. I guess we're cooking together." Gorith snorted. "Humans cook everything. You burn your food until it is dead twice over." "I do not eat solid matter," Prilla added, her voice clicking softly. "I cannot participate in traditional cooking, and I cannot be near heat sources," Scylla whispered, taking a small step backward. "I am sorry. I will be useless." Rook said nothing. He simply stared at the organic ingredients piled on their station's table with obvious disgust. Danny looked at the supplies they had been given. Vegetables, protein blocks, grain, water, basic cutting tools. No replicates. No heating units. They were expected to make fire themselves if they wanted hot food. Around them, other groups were already arguing. A cluster of Fenari students refused to let anyone light a flame. 2 Brune were growling at a Theshan, who kept insisting on liquid preparation. One group had attempted some kind of chemical heating method, and a small toxic cloud was now rising from their station while instructors rushed over with containment equipment. Professor Tam, an elderly Fenari with graying fur, walked between the stations with a clipboard. She paused near Danny's group and made a note. Her expression suggested she expected them to fail. Mixed dietary groups always failed. "This is impossible," Prilla said. "We cannot share a meal. Our biologies are incompatible." "She is correct," Gorith agreed. "I will not pretend to eat burned vegetation to satisfy some academic exercise." Danny should have felt discouraged. Instead, he felt curious. He had grown up on a ranch where every season brought different challenges. Drought years, flood years, years when the cattle got sick, and years when the equipment broke down. His grandfather had taught him one lesson above all others. When the obvious solution does not work, find the solution nobody else can see. "Can I ask you all something?" Danny said. The group looked at him with varying degrees of skepticism. "What does food mean to you? Not what you eat. What does the act of eating mean in your culture?" Silence followed. Then Prilla's compound eyes shifted thoughtfully. "On Thesha, we have communal feeding pools. Families gather together and share nutrients from the same source. It is our most sacred bonding ritual." Rook's stone face moved slightly. "Delvins hold mining ceremonies. Clans gather at sacred mineral deposits and consume blessed stones together. The eating is secondary. The gathering is everything." Scylla's ears lifted just a little. "My mother prepared cold meals for our family every evening. She could not use heat, but she made every dish with love. We sat together and ate together. It was the only time I felt safe." Everyone looked at Gorith. The big Brune was quiet for a long moment. After a hunt, he finally said, "The pack eats together. What we eat matters less than the fact that we eat as one. It proves we are still a pack, still family." Danny nodded slowly. A smile spread across his face. "So none of you need the same food, but you all need the same thing." He walked to the edge of the arena and began collecting stones. The others watched him, confused. "What are you doing, human?" Gorith called. Danny carried an armful of rocks back to their station and set them down carefully. "I'm going to build something my grandfather taught me to build. Something humans have been building for 40,000 years." He began arranging the stones in a circle. "I'm going to give us a place to gather." Scylla's ears flattened. "You are building a fire pit." "Yes. I cannot be near fire." Danny looked up at her with gentle eyes. "I know. Trust me. The fire is not the point." He continued building, stone by stone, while his impossible group watched in silence. None of them understood yet, but they would. Nobody in the cooking arena was having a good day. That much was clear to anyone watching, that a Theshan student had accidentally sprayed digestive enzymes across her group's entire food supply, rendering it toxic to everyone else. Two Brune had nearly come to blows over whether rawness was measured by temperature or by time since death. A group of Delvins had simply given up and were now sitting in a circle, consuming pebbles from the arena floor while their organic-eating teammates stared in dismay. And somewhere in the chaos, a small fire had broken out at Station 12. The Fenari students assigned to that group were now huddled at the far edge of the arena, trembling. Professor Tam moved through the disaster with her clipboard, marking failures with quick, efficient strokes of her pen. Her expression never changed. She had seen this exercise fail for 30 years. Mixed species groups simply could not cook together. That was the lesson. That was always the lesson. At Station 4. Danny Reeves continued stacking stones. His groupmates had not moved. Prilla watched with her forearms folded, compound eyes tracking each stone placement. Rook observed with the patience of someone who understood minerals and their properties. Gorith stood with his massive arms crossed, skeptical but curious. Scylla had retreated several steps back. Her silver fur bristled with anxiety. "The human has lost his mind," Gorith said. "Perhaps," Prilla agreed. "But I admit I do not understand what he is building." Danny finished the circular base and began creating a small channel on one side. Airflow, ventilation. His grandfather had taught him that fire needed to breathe, just like any living thing. "It is a primitive heating structure," Rook said. His voice rumbled like stones grinding together. "I have seen similar constructions in historical archives. Humans used these before they developed technology." "Before?" Gorith sounded surprised. "How long have humans had fire?" Danny looked up and grinned. "About 400,000 years, give or take. We were making controlled fires before we were fully modern humans. Fire is older than our current species." The group fell silent. For 100,000 years, most species in the galaxy had discovered fire only after developing basic civilization. Humans had apparently done it backward. "Why?" Prilla asked. "What drove your species to master fire so early?" Danny sat back on his heels and wiped dirt from his hands. "Earth is a death world. You know that, right?" They knew. Everyone in the galaxy knew about Earth. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, predators everywhere, toxic plants, venomous insects, natural disasters that could level entire regions. The fact that humans had survived it all was considered something of a miracle. "We had no natural weapons," Danny continued. "No claws like Gorith. No protective shell like Rook. No venom. No speed. Nothing. We were soft, slow, weak prey animals on a world that wanted to kill us every single day." He picked up a stick and began stripping its bark. "So we cheated. We found fire, and we made it ours. It kept predators away at night. It let us cook food so we could digest more nutrients and grow bigger brains. It kept us warm when the ice ages came." He paused. "And most importantly, it gave us a reason to gather together." "I do not understand," Scylla said from her distance. Her voice was small but curious. Danny pointed at the stone circle. "When you have fire, you have a center. A place where everyone sits. A place where the warmth is shared equally. Fire created human community. It taught us that survival was not about being the strongest individual. It was about being the strongest group. Gorith uncrossed his arms. Your species built civilization around a heating source. We built civilization around each other. The fire was just the excuse. Professor Tam had stopped nearby, listening. Her pen hovered over her clipboard, but she made no marks. Danny gathered dried leaves and small twigs from around the arena. He arranged them carefully in the center of his stone circle. Then he picked up 2 sticks and began rubbing them together. "What are you doing now?" Prilla asked. "Making fire. Without technology." Danny's hands moved faster. "This is technology. The oldest technology humans have. Friction creates heat. Heat creates ember. Ember creates flame." Rook leaned forward with sudden interest. "You can generate combustion through mechanical force alone. Every human learns this as a child. At least, we did where I grew up." Smoke began to rise from the friction point. Danny blew gently, carefully, feeding oxygen to the growing heat. A tiny orange glow appeared. He transferred it to the dry leaves with practiced hands. Flame erupted. Scylla made a sound of fear and backed away further. But she did not run. Her eyes stayed fixed on the fire and on the human who had created it from nothing. Gorith took a step closer. "You made fire with your bare hands. Humans always have. Humans always will." Danny fed small twigs to the growing flame. "Now, who want to help me feed our group?" Professor Tam finally made a mark on her clipboard. But her expression had changed. For the first time in 30 years, she looked uncertain. Something was happening at Station 4 that her experience had not prepared her for. The human was building more than a fire pit. He was building something that no species in the galaxy had ever managed to build, a place where everyone belonged. The fire crackled and popped, sending tiny sparks upward into the air. Around the arena, other groups had stopped their own failing attempts to watch Station 4. A human had just created flame from nothing but wood and determination. Even the instructors seemed unsure how to react. Danny fed the fire carefully, building it slowly. Too much fuel too fast would smother it. Too little would let it die. Balance was everything. "Now comes the hard part," he said. Gorith laughed. "Making fire with your hands was not the hard part. That was just physics. This next part requires trust." Danny looked at each of his group mates in turn. "I need all of you to help me. Each of you has something to contribute that I do not have." Prilla's antennae twitched. "I cannot cook. I have never prepared solid food." "I know, but you have 4 arms and incredible precision. I watched you in biology class last week. You can cut and slice faster than any machine." Danny gestured toward the vegetables on their table. "I need someone to prepare ingredients. Some for roasting, some for blending into liquid form." "Liquid form?" Prilla moved closer, interested despite herself. "You would prepare food in a way I could consume." "That is the plan. Roasted vegetables, blended smooth. The heat changes the flavor, makes it richer. You might like it." Prilla looked at the vegetables, then at the fire, then at Danny. Without a word, she walked to the preparation table and began sorting ingredients with all 4 hands working simultaneously. Her speed was remarkable. Danny turned to Gorith. "I need your strength. This fire pit needs a proper cooking structure. Flat stones for grilling. A frame for hanging a pot. Can you help me build it?" The Brune stared at him. "You want me to help you cook food?" "I want you to help me prepare a place where we can all eat together. Your food will not be cooked. I promise. But I need your help to make space for everyone else." Gorith was silent for a long moment. Then he walked to the edge of the arena and began selecting large flat stones. He carried them back effortlessly, his Brune strength making light work of rocks that would have taken Danny considerable effort to move. Together, human and Brune built a proper cooking station. Gorith arranged the flat stones around the fire, while Danny constructed a simple frame from branches for hanging a pot over the flames. "You work well together," Prilla observed, her hands never stopping their precise, cutting work. "Humans are pack hunters," Danny said. "Like Brune, we understand cooperation." Gorith paused. "Brune do not consider humans pack hunters. You have no claws, no fangs. We have these." Danny held up his hands. "And these." He tapped his temple. Humans hunted animals 10 times our size. We did it by working together, by planning, by never giving up. We chased prey across entire continents until they collapsed from exhaustion. We are the greatest endurance hunters Earth ever produced. The Bruin studied Danny with new respect. Persistence hunting. I have heard of this. I did not believe it. Believe it. Humans never stop. We never quit. It is perhaps our greatest strength and our greatest flaw. Rook had been watching from the edge of the fire's warmth. Danny walked over to him. I need your help most of all, Danny said. The Delvin's stone face showed surprise. I know nothing of organic food preparation. No, but you know stones better than anyone. Some rocks crack when heated. Some release toxic gases. Some hold heat perfectly and make ideal cooking surfaces. Danny gestured toward the fire pit. Which of those stones will fail? Which should I replace? Rook moved closer, examining the construction with expert eyes. His stone fingers touched each rock in turn. This one, he said, pointing, sedimentary. It will crack within an hour. Replace it with that darker stone there. Igneous. It will hold heat safely. Danny made the switch. What about the cooking stones Gorth selected? Rook examined them. Good choices. Dense basalt. They will heat evenly and hold temperature well. Your Bruin has good instincts. Gorth straightened with pride. For the next several minutes, Rook advised on stone placement and heat distribution. His knowledge transformed the crude fire pit into something efficient and safe. Danny had built the foundation, but Rook had perfected it. Thank you, Danny said. You belong in this circle, Rook. Your knowledge matters here. The Delvin said nothing, but he did not retreat to the edge of the group. He stayed near the fire, watching the flames dance across the stones he had helped select. Only Scylla remained apart. She stood 20 feet away, her silver fur still bristled, her ears flat against her skull. The fire terrified her. Every crackle made her flinch. Danny did not call to her. He did not pressure her. Instead, he began cooking. He roasted vegetables on the hot flat stones. He prepared grain cakes and let them brown over the heat. He set aside raw meat for Gorth, but seasoned it with herbs and arranged it with care. He blended roasted vegetables into a smooth liquid for Prilla, and he talked while he worked. He told stories about campfires on Earth, about his grandfather teaching him to cook over open flames, about cold nights in Montana when the only warmth came from a fire built with your own hands. Scylla listened from her distance. Her ears slowly began to rise. The fire was still terrifying, but the human's voice was not. The smell of cooking food drifted across the arena. It was a smell that most species recognized on some instinctive level, even those who had never cooked anything in their lives. Heat transforming matter, chemistry becoming sustenance. It was ancient, it was primal, and it was coming from Station 4. Other groups had abandoned their own efforts entirely. Students from across the arena gathered at a respectful distance, watching the human work. They whispered among themselves in a dozen different languages. Danny Reeves paid them no attention. He was focused on his task. The fire pit blazed steadily now, contained perfectly within Rook's carefully selected stones. Multiple cooking zones surrounded it. A roasting section where vegetables sizzled and browned. A flat stone where grain cakes turned golden. A preparation area where Prilla's 4 hands worked with mechanical precision. And off to one side, a space where raw meat sat arranged on a wooden board, seasoned with herbs but untouched by flame. The meat preparation is acceptable, Gorth admitted. He had moved closer to the fire despite his cultural objections to cooking. You have treated the flesh with respect. On Earth, we have hunters who prefer raw meat too, Danny said. We call some preparations tartare. Others are simply fresh from the hunt. There is no shame in eating what your body requires. The Bruin picked up a piece of the seasoned raw meat and ate it. His eyes widened slightly. The herbs, he said, they enhance the flavor. Seasoning does not require heat, just knowledge. Danny smiled. My grandmother used to say that cooking was just chemistry you could eat. Prilla approached with a container of blended roasted vegetables. The mixture was smooth, pale orange, and steaming slightly. Is this correct? She asked. I have never prepared food for consumption. Danny examined it. Perfect. The roasting brought out the natural sugars. Try it. The Theshian extended her feeding tube and sampled the mixture. Her compound eyes went wide. This is remarkable, she said. On Thesha, our nutrient pools are efficient but bland. This has layers. Complexity. She took another sample. I did not know food could taste like this. 40,000 years of practice, Danny said. Humans have been experimenting with cooking since before we had writing. We have had a lot of time to figure out what tastes good. Rook had not moved from his position near the fire. The warmth radiating from his selected stones seemed to comfort him in some way Danny did not fully understand. I cannot eat what you have prepared, the Delvin said, but I find that I do not wish to leave this gathering. Danny nodded. Then stay. The circle is not about consuming the same thing. It is about being present together. He reached into his pocket and produced a small cloth bag. Inside were minerals he had collected from around the arena. Iron-rich stones, copper deposits, cristalline formation. I noticed you examining these earlier, Danny said. I thought perhaps you might enjoy sampling them while we eat. Rook took the bag with something approaching wonder. You gathered these for me? You're a part of this group. You should have something to consume while we share this meal. The Delvin opened the bag and examined the minerals inside. Without a word, he selected a small copper-rich stone and began absorbing it through his palm. The closest thing to eating he could do. Around the fire, the impossible group began to take shape. Gorith sat with his raw meat. Prilla consumed her blended vegetables. Rook absorbed his minerals. Danny ate roasted grain cakes and vegetables, the simple food of his ancestors. Only one member remained outside the circle. Scylla watched from the darkness beyond the firelight. Her silver fur had settled somewhat. Her ears no longer lay completely flat, but she could not bring herself to move closer. Danny noticed the other groups watching. He noticed Professor Tam standing motionless with her clipboard. He noticed the silence that had fallen over the arena. None of that mattered. What mattered was the small Fenari standing alone in the shadows. Danny stood up and dusted off his hands. Gorith, can you watch the fire for a moment? The Brew nodded. Where are you going? To complete our circle. Danny walked away from the warmth and light of the fire pit. He crossed the cooking arena until he reached Scylla. The Fenari tensed as he approached, but did not flee. Danny did not come too close. He simply sat down on the ground a few feet away from her, facing the fire pit in the distance. It is beautiful, is it not? He said quietly. The fire, I mean. Scylla's voice trembled. It is terrifying. Yes, Danny agreed. It is that too. They sat in silence together, human and Fenari, watching the flames dance from a safe distance. Danny did not try to convince her the fire was harmless. He did not tell her that her fear was irrational. He simply sat with her in the darkness and waited, because some fears could not be argued away. They could only be walked through, together. The grass was cool beneath them. Danny could hear the distant crackle of the fire and the soft murmur of the watching crowd. But here in the darkness with Scylla, those sounds seemed far away. Tell me about the fires on your world, Danny said. He kept his voice soft and calm. Scylla was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her words came slowly. Fenara is a dry world. Our forests are ancient, and our trees burn easily. Every generation, great fires sweep across the continents. They consume everything. Her ears pressed back against her head. My grandmother died in such a fire. My mother barely escaped. She carried me through smoke and flame when I was only an infant. Danny nodded slowly. I am sorry. Fire is death to my people. We have feared it for 10,000 years. It is written into our very bones. I understand. Scylla looked at him sharply. How could you possibly understand? Humans worship fire. You built your entire civilization around it. Danny was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. In the year 1871, a fire swept through a human city called Chicago. It burned for 3 days. Over 300 people died. 17,000 buildings were destroyed. 100,000 humans became homeless in a single night. Scylla's ears twitched. In 1666, a fire consumed most of a city called London. 13,000 houses, 87 churches, a medieval city erased in 4 days. Your kind experienced such disasters, and still you embrace fire. We experience such disasters and learn to respect fire, to control it, to make it serve us instead of destroy us. Danny turned to face her. Humans fear fire too, Scylla. We have burned. We have died. We have lost everything to flame over and over again throughout our history. But we never stopped using it, because fire is not good or evil. It simply is. What matters is who controls it and how. Scylla looked toward the distant fire pit. The flames danced within their stone boundary, contained and steady. The fire you built, she said. It seems so small. It is small. I made it small on purpose. Controlled. Safe. Danny paused. I will not let it hurt you, Scylla. I promise. How can you make such a promise? Because that is what humans do. We face the things that frighten us. We tame them. We turn them into tools. He stood up and offered her his hand. And we never let our pack members face danger alone. Scylla stared at his hand. She was shaking. I am not part of your pack. You are now. The Fenari's eyes glistened. No one had ever said such a thing to her. On Fenara, packs were formed by blood and tradition. You were born into your family, and that was where you belonged. The idea that a stranger, an alien, could simply declare her family was strange, but not unwelcome. Slowly, carefully, Scylla reached out and took Danny's hand. They walked toward the fire together. Scylla's steps were hesitant. Several times she stopped, trembling, and Danny waited patiently beside her. He did not pull. He did not rush. He simply held her hand and let her set the pace. The others noticed their approach. Prilla's antennae straightened. Gorith rose slightly, his massive form tense with concern. Rook's stone face showed something that might have been worry. Danny raised his free hand, signaling them to stay calm. Stay still. They reached the edge of the firelight. Scylla stopped, her breathing rapid. The warmth touched her fur. She could smell the smoke, hear the crackle of burning wood. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but Danny's hand held hers, warm and steady. You do not have to go closer, Danny said. This is close enough. You are in the circle now. Scylla looked around. Rook shifted his position, moving some of his selected stones to create a barrier between the fire and where she stood. Prilla angled her body to block some of the direct heat. Gorith, surprisingly gentle for such a massive creature, picked up the cold prep dish Danny had set aside earlier and offered it to her. The human made this for you, the Brune said. No heat touched it. It is safe. Scylla took the dish with trembling hands. It was a simple meal, vegetables cut fine and mixed with grain, dressed with herbs and oil. Cold, safe, made with care. She ate. Around her, the circle was complete. Prilla consumed her blended nutrients. Rook absorbed his minerals. Gorith devoured his seasoned raw meat. Danny ate his roasted grain, cakes .5 species. 5 different foods. 1 gathering. Professor Tam had stopped writing on her clipboard entirely. She simply watched, her old eyes seeing something she had never seen in 30 years of this exercise, that a group that had found unity not by becoming the same, but by making space for difference. Scylla finished her meal. Her hands had stopped trembling. She was still afraid of the fire, but she was no longer afraid of this circle. She belonged here. The cooking exercise ended when the largest of the 3 moons reached its peak. Across the arena, groups presented their results to Professor Tam. Some had managed adequate meals through compromise. Others had produced edible but uninspired dishes. A few had failed entirely, their stations littered with abandoned ingredients and broken equipment. Station 4 was different. The fire had burned down to embers now, glowing orange and red within the stone circle. Around it sat 5 beings who had nothing in common except the human who had brought them together. Professor Tam approached slowly. The entire arena watched in silence. The assignment, she said, her voice carrying across the crowd, was to cook together. Most groups interpreted this as preparing the same food, using the same methods for the same consumption. She looked down at her clipboard. Pages of notes. 30 years of failures documented in careful handwriting. Station 4 made no attempt to do any of that. Gorith tensed. Prilla's antennae drooped. Even Rook's stone face seemed to show concern. They did not cook the same food. They did not use the same methods. They did not even eat in the same way. Tam paused. Instead, they recognized something that every other group missed. The purpose of a shared meal is not the food itself. It is the sharing. She made a single mark on her clipboard. Full marks. The arena erupted in whispers. Danny just smiled and offered the professor a roasted grain cake. Tam hesitated, then took it. She bit into the simple food and chewed thoughtfully. Your species is strange, human. We get that a lot. You build fires with your bare hands. You eat food that would kill most species. You form bonds with anyone willing to stand in your circle. The professor's old eyes studied him. What drives such behavior? Danny considered the question. Behind him, his group mates waited for his answer. Loneliness, he finally said. Humans evolved on a planet with no other intelligent species. We were alone for our entire history. We had no one to talk to, no one to share with, no one who understood us. He looked at his group. So we learned to build bridges, to find common ground with anyone, even when there should not be any common ground to find, because the alternative was being alone forever. Professor Tam nodded slowly. And now you are no longer alone. No, now we have the whole galaxy. Danny's smile widened. And we intend to sit around the fire with every single one of you. The crowd began to disperse as the exercise officially ended. Other groups packed up their stations and headed back toward the dormitories. But Station 4 remained. The 5 of them sat in comfortable silence, watching the last embers fade. On Thesha, Prilla said quietly, I have never eaten with another species. I believed it impossible. Incompatible biologies. Different needs. Her compound eyes reflected the dying glow. I was wrong. My clan would call this weakness, Gorith admitted. Sitting with prey species. Sharing space instead of hunting. He picked up another piece of seasoned raw meat. I will tell them they are fools. Rook touched the cooling stones he had selected for the fire pit. I have never felt included in organic matters. My people stand apart. We observe but do not participate. His voice rumbled softly. This was different. Scylla said nothing. She sat within the circle. Her silver fur no longer bristled. Her ears relaxed and upright. The fire had burned down to nothing but ash and cooling stones. She was not afraid. Danny, she finally said, why did you come sit with me in the darkness? Because no one should face their fears alone. But I am Finari. We are not your people. Danny shook his head. Everyone is my people. That is what being human means. He stood up and stretched. The circle does not care what species you are. It only cares that you are willing to join it. Above them, the 3 moons continued their slow journey across the sky. The cooking arena was almost empty now. The smells of food had faded. The crowds had gone. But at Station 4, 5 beings remained. Prilla the Theshan, who had learned that food could be more than nutrition. Gorith the Brune, who had discovered that cooking was not weakness. Rook the Delvin, who had found belonging among organic beings. Scylla the Finari, who had walked through her deepest fear. And Danny the Human, who had done what humans have been doing for 40,000 years, building a fire, gathering his people, making sure no one sat alone in the darkness. The fire was gone now. The stones were cool. The exercise was over, but the circle remained. And somehow, all of them knew that it always would, because that was the lesson the human had taught them. Not how to cook, not how to make fire, how to belong, how to gather, how to be, for the first time in their lives, not 5 separate species eating different foods, but one group, one circle, one family.